You're watching the second hour of GMN. Responsiveness towards cases of gender-based violence in Namibia is said to be poor. And it is for this reason that the Legal Assistance Centre of Namibia will be visiting 7 magistrates' courts in Namibia to discuss with service providers how Namibia can improve its responsiveness to cases of domestic violence. Joining us in the studio to elaborate more on this particular roadshow, we are joined by Yolandi Engelbrecht, paralegal for the Gender Research and Advocacy Program at the LAC, as well as Lillian Arts, Associate Professor and Director for Gender Health and Justice Research Unit at the University of Cape Town. Good morning, Yolandi. Lillian, thank you so much for coming in.
Good morning. I'm having a guest today, sir.
Yes. Why a roadshow? Why not a meeting?
Well, you know, our courts are quite busy. You know, I think recently there was a newspaper article about a magistrate that was absent from court in the case had to be postponed. So we appreciate the fact that our magistrates and our court officials are very, very busy, especially when it comes to domestic violence issues and so on. So we don't want to interrupt the whole court system. We don't want people to travel. You know, even if you have to travel to Okayan, you have to plan nicely. At least 2 days are set aside for traveling purposes and so on. So this is basically more logistical reasons why we feel like let's go as stakeholders, as service providers to the courts, even when we will be busy discussing during the meetings. Some of the magistrates were already, tendering apologies by saying we will be there for 4 hours or 3 hours, but we need to go to court quickly and that type of thing. So we don't really want to interrupt the court scheduling on a daily basis. That's why we thought let's go to the courts, to assist them also in a way which is more practical.
Okay. Well, the issue at hand is the unresponsiveness of the nation towards domestic violence. What exactly do you aim to get out of this roadshow?
Well, the roadshow is going to be discussing a lot of important issues. You know, there will be several topics that we are targeting to discuss, but most importantly, Lorica, the fact that there's so many important and vital stakeholders, who's dealing with the same type of issues in Namibia, dealing with domestic violence cases on a daily basis. So it's a group of experts coming together and discussing and to see how best can we try and solve problems experienced by the courts on a daily basis, and also to share information, to learn from each other, So yeah, we will be quite busy with hectic
discussions. Lillian, you coming in as our South African expert during this roadshow, what will your role be?
Well, really, it's an opportunity for the organizations and with the courts to share experiences about how things are running in our respective countries. We share very similar legal frameworks and policy frameworks that govern the management of domestic violence. And in fact, South Africa drew very heavily on Namibia's draft versions of the Combating of Domestic Violence Act. So we have a sort of a legislative history that we share very closely. We also share powerful organizations within each country that have done a great deal of work in terms of researching and monitoring the implementation of this legislation at a very substantive, very practical, very operational level. And it'll be wonderful to be able to go to the courts at the front lines of where this is happening and to share some of the challenges that we face, but also some of the enabling factors in terms of how we're addressing these problems in our respective
and
countries.
Also we are not just going to concentrate on the gender-based violence. There's a big link between gender-based violence and HIV-related issues. So that will be our main aim.
All right. Now, of course, it's a universal problem, whether Namibia or South Africa. How is South Africa as a country dealing with domestic violence cases?
I think we, again, share, as you use the term universal, and they are universal issues. And I think the thing that we need to do and pay attention to very carefully are the reasons why things aren't working. Sometimes they are purely systemic reasons, administrative reasons that can be very easily resolved in terms of the processing of forms or how we're, following up with complainants of domestic violence. And some of them are very personal reasons why women in particular are struggling with those systems. Poverty, the limitation of choices that creates, the worry about breaking up families,
of course.
Opportunities after you've left an abusive partner, the threat of death should you continue with the process, concerns about children and schooling and reschooling. So there's a whole myriad of reasons as to why the systems sort of break down.
Yeah.
Partly it's systemic. There are very fundamental issues we need to address there. And there are very real social issues that we need to address in terms of women's equality.
Yeah.
So we really need to dig deep and start mining and looking at the reasons.
It's one of the biggest problems, I think, that we're facing at the moment. Women actually go and they make the case and then they withdraw it. So how do you think courts can help with that kind of situation?
Our experience has been two issues. One is information. The court process is a very daunting process for anybody, whether you're
it's scary and it's traumatizing.
Absolutely, structurally it's overwhelming. It's very officious, and it's quite an alarming experience for anybody. But if you've been a victim of domestic violence, years and years and years of abuse, and you're now in a situation where, you're confronting this institution that is meant to support you, the two things that you really need is information, understanding what the process is, and the second thing that really women want is some reliability around protection.
Of course.
They want to know that once I come here, and
will
I
I be
this
protected? Are my children going to be protected?
Precisely. It's really is a situation of creating an environment for victims where they can feel safe.
Yes.
And it sounds like a very simple solution, and it is to most effect. It's about creating those mechanisms within the courts to ensure that happens.
Yeah. All right, Yolandi, who will be participating in the brochure?
Well, we are targeting at least 5 to 7 service providers, starting from the magistrates, also the court officials, the clerks of the courts and so on. We will have the expertise of Professor Arts here, and also the police and the social workers will be attending. We are obviously open to any other service providers that feels that, we need to also be part of these discussions. It's not like we are limiting anybody.
Yes.
Especially if you look at the issue of statistics. In Namibia, only 24% of interim protection orders are actually resulting in a final protection order, and that's a very, very big concern in terms of the study we have done. The LAC has done a seeking safety report, which we will be concentrating on. So we are sitting with statistics that we have to look at. We have to see the problems that the courts are experiencing. So I'm quite happy with all the stakeholders that will be participating.
You're targeting 7 different magistrates courts?
Yeah, we are targeting 7 courts. We will start with the Vendu court, today, and then we'll roll out to other courts. Like tomorrow we will be visiting Rehoboth, and then we come back, and then we'll go and visit the Hobarbers Court, the Magistrates Court there. After that, we are proceeding to Okahania, and then also Ochivarongo and Otavi. In Grootfontein, and then we'll come back. This is our first session in terms of the court.
It's the first phase.
Yeah, it's the first phase.
Right.
So we are hoping to proceed next year with our second and the last phase.
Whereby you include more regions in the country?
More regions. We'll identify also new courts, not the 7 that we are visiting during this session. So we are going to finalize this, the last phase next year.
All right. When does the roadshow kick off?
Today at 9. At 9, yeah.
At 9.
At 9.
Wonderful.
So we are looking forward to it.
Well, wishing you guys all the best.
Thank you.
In terms of having wonderful dialogue, and in terms of creating some great policies that are actually implementable.
Thank you, and we are hoping to come back to share more with the nation on what we have been discussing and what the outcome is.
Thank you. Yolandi, Lillian, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
That was Yolandi Engelbrecht, paralegal for the Gender Research and Advocacy Program at the Legal Assistance Centre, as well as Lillian Arts. She is an associate professor and director for the Gender Health and Justice Research Unit at the University of Cape Town. Stay tuned. More coming up here on GMN.